The mental trick that makes a woman sexually attracted to you is not based on isolated actions or strategies designed to impress, but on a continuous alignment of mind, body, and attitude. Most men assume that seduction is about executing the right moves at the right time, delivering the perfect line, adopting a bold attitude, and putting in extra effort. However, the more they try to adjust these external pieces, the more they realize something is missing. Interest fades, attraction doesn't deepen, and desire never truly arises. This happens because female desire does not respond to isolated actions. Rather, it is a reflection of the mental state a man sustains while acting. David Buss, an expert in evolutionary psychology, explains that women are not biologically wired to respond to explicit attempts at seduction. Instead, they respond to consistent signals of value, direction, and situational dominance. The female body instinctively evaluates who governs his internal state, who naturally occupies space, and who reacts to the environment rather than being governed by it. What matters is not what a man does once, but what he consistently represents. This is why canned lines fail, why appearance alone doesn't sustain desire, and why direct effort often produces the opposite effect. The female brain is not aroused by trying, it is aroused by reading posture, rhythm, and emotional stability. When a man tries to seduce, he places himself in a position of pursuit. But when he sustains the right mental state, he is interpreted as a choice. The so-called hidden trick was never a specific move or a single technique. It is a continuous behavioral state, a seamless alignment between mind, body, and attitude that remains even when nothing is happening. Few men activate this because it requires self-mastery, social awareness, and emotional control. It does not require momentary courage. It requires internal consistency, and internal consistency is rare. When you understand the exact mechanism that makes the female brain reinterpret you, not as someone pleasant or socially acceptable, but as a sexual man, you will realize that the key is not to impress or convince, but to sustain the right state long enough for instinct to do the rest. Once that happens, desire no longer needs to be provoked. It emerges as a natural response to what you have come to represent. One of the techniques is psychological positioning, positioning yourself as the chooser, not the one in pursuit. There is a brutal difference between the man who enters an environment wanting to be accepted and the man who enters observing whether it is worth staying. This difference is not spoken, it is felt. Robert Greene explains that whoever appears to choose activates automatic attraction because he occupies a higher position in the psychological hierarchy. This is not arrogance, it is the absence of need. The female brain recognizes this in less than a second. When you position yourself as a candidate, everything about you communicates pursuit. The body leans in, the rhythm accelerates, and words try to convince. But the man who positions himself as a filter maintains his axis. He does not change his energy when entering. He does not adapt to fit. Instead, he observes, measures, and decides. This silent posture immediately changes the instinctive perception of those around him. Studies from Princeton show that judgments of value and dominance happen in fractions of a second before any verbal content. This means that the decision begins before the conversation even starts. This technique does not depend on speech, because speech comes after positioning. It depends on how you occupy social space, entering without haste, maintaining an open, stable posture, and looking without asking permission. When you ask selective questions instead of presenting yourself, you communicate discernment. Discernment communicates value, and value awakens curiosity. Curiosity, in turn, is the first step toward desire. One of the most effective details that almost no one applies is ending interactions when you decide, not when the topic runs out. This breaks the pattern of neediness. The female brain reads this movement as control of rhythm. Control of rhythm is interpreted as leadership. Leadership, in turn, is associated with protection and direction, two biological triggers that are deep and difficult to ignore. The result of this technique is silent, but powerful. You stop being interpreted as someone seeking acceptance and start being read as a source of value, not because you said something impressive, but because you didn't need to. When a man occupies the position of choice, the environment reorganizes around him. And when the environment reorganizes, desire finds space to emerge naturally. The second technique revolves around cognitive sexual tension, curiosity, and ambiguity. Few men understand that desire does not grow when everything is clear, but when something remains open. Carl Jung explained that psychic energy moves toward what is unresolved, toward what provokes interpretation, and toward what demands reading. The female brain is not aroused when it receives everything prepackaged. It is aroused when it needs to decipher, when it needs to imagine. Something is left suspended in the air, and this open-endedness stimulates her mental engagement. The common mistake is confusing clarity with attraction. The man thinks that by showing interest early, by making everything explicit, he creates security. What he actually creates is closure. When everything is explained, the nervous system relaxes, and excessive relaxation does not generate desire. Desire needs cognitive tension, the subtle feeling of curiosity that keeps the mind active even after the interaction ends. Research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology shows that controlled ambiguity increases dopaminergic activation. Dopamine responds to contrast, to expectation, and to what is not fully resolved. When you give answers that are too complete or confirm interest too early, you close the circuit before it has time to strengthen. Desire does not have time to grow. This technique has nothing to do with games or emotional confusion. It requires precision, offering incomplete but confident answers. You maintain a firm presence, but you are not invasive. You do not hide. You do not run away. You simply do not give everything all at once. You alternate moments of full attention with brief withdrawals of focus, not to punish, but to keep the field alive. Notice how this changes the dynamic. The woman starts thinking after the interaction. She replays phrases, interprets silences, fills in gaps. And the more the mind works, the more the body follows. Desire is built in this internal space you left open. It's not about saying less, but about saying enough to awaken, not to satisfy. The practical application of this requires calmness, never confirming interest too early, never verbalizing intentions before the right time. You sustain your presence without the need for immediate closure. When you master this cognitive tension, flirting stops being explicit and becomes psychological. And the psychological is always deeper than the obvious. This is exactly where most men fail, because they do not understand the mechanism. This is why the code of seduction exists, not as a set of mysterious phrases, but as a system that teaches how to create and sustain real psychological tension without seeming manipulative or needy. This method is based on evolutionary psychology, behavioral reading, and social dynamics, showing how to activate desire at the level where it truly arises. This knowledge is not taught publicly because it requires emotional responsibility and internal control. Access to this wisdom can be found through the link in the description and the pinned comment. Those who learn to sustain the unresolved never need to force interest again. They become interpreted as stimuli. The third technique focuses on visible emotional mastery, the most sexual trigger of all. There is a moment in every interaction when the environment tries to pull you off-center, a sideways comment, a subtle provocation, an unexpected silence. It is at this point that almost everything is decided, not by what is said, but by who maintains control of their internal state. Enzi described the magnetic man as the one who governs himself before attempting to govern anything around him. Desire is born precisely from this internal sovereignty that does not need to be announced. The female body interprets emotional control as the capacity for leadership and protection. This is not a moral reading, it is biological. Studies from the University of California show that self-control is directly associated with the perception of high status. When emotions do not hijack your decisions, you communicate something very specific without words. You communicate that the environment does not command you, that stimuli do not disorganize you, and that you choose how to respond. This reading happens quickly and deeply. The common mistake is trying to fix the mood. The man feels the tension and rushes to relieve it. He explains too much, laughs at the wrong time, changes tone to please. All of this communicates anxiety, and anxiety communicates a loss of control. Loss of control kills desire before it has a chance to grow. Visible emotional mastery is not coldness. It is stability under pressure. It is feeling the tension and still sustaining your own rhythm. In practice, this technique is simple and difficult at the same time, not reacting immediately to emotional stimuli, keeping a stable tone when tension appears, and not trying to resolve everything the moment it arises. Sustaining the atmosphere instead of escaping it. When you do this, something changes on the other side. The expectation of reaction is not confirmed. The test loses strength. The reading adjusts. This is the most sexual trigger of all because it signals deep maturity, not performative confidence, but the confidence that comes from someone who has already observed himself in difficult moments and did not lose himself. The man who sustains visible emotional mastery creates a field of instinctive safety. And where there is instinctive safety, desire finds permission to exist. Few men master this because it requires internal training, not momentary courage. It requires inner silence, not fast responses. But when this mastery appears naturally, the effect is immediate. You stop being merely interesting. You become solid. And solidity at the instinctive level is one of the deepest foundations of attraction. The hidden trick is not seducing, it is sustaining the right state. After observing these patterns honestly, one truth imposes itself effortlessly. Female desire is not born from attempts, it is born from interpretation. The female brain does not respond to isolated moves, but to continuous coherence between psychological positioning, sustained tension, and emotional mastery. David Boos explains that attraction is an adaptive response to consistent signals of value, not to punctual performances. When these signals align, desire appears without being summoned. That is why techniques only work when they stop looking like techniques. Positioning as the chooser is not a social trick. It is identity in action. Cognitive tension is not forced mystery. It is the natural consequence of someone who does not give everything away out of anxiety. Visible emotional mastery is not coldness. It is maturity under pressure. When these three layers become natural behavior, the man stops trying to seduce. He starts being read as seductive. Notice how everything converges. The man who chooses sets the rhythm. The man who sustains the unresolved keeps curiosity alive. The man who governs his own emotions creates instinctive safety. Together, these forces make the female brain reinterpret you, not as someone socially pleasant, but as someone sexually relevant, not by effort, but by state. Men who master this do not chase validation. They do not rush processes. They do not try to fix the atmosphere. They remain whole while the environment adjusts. And when the environment adjusts, desire finds space to grow on its own. This is the difference between those who force interest and those who awaken attraction. That is exactly the mechanism the code of seduction teaches in a structured way. not as ready-made lines, not as empty shortcuts, but as a complete training in real desire psychology, behavioral reading, and social dynamics. A system for men who want internal control, clarity in interactions, and silent advantage. The difference between those who force interest and those who awaken attraction is precisely the foundation of the mechanisms at play in attraction. This understanding of attraction is not about quick fixes or superficial strategies, but about adopting a deeper, more consistent approach. As we've explored, the real essence of seduction lies in the psychological and emotional positioning that a man maintains. It's about the subtle, continuous signals of value he represents, the way he occupies space, and the confidence he exudes without being overtly aggressive. When a man enters a space with the attitude of being a chooser rather than seeking approval, the environment itself changes. He becomes a point of focus, not because he demands attention, but because he emits an inherent sense of value and strength. This creates a magnetic effect, where those around him feel compelled to respond to his energy. It's not about making flashy gestures or grand speeches. It's about a calm, steady presence that communicates far more than words ever could. When a man exhibits emotional control and maintains his psychological positioning, women, and people in general, are instinctively drawn to him. This attraction arises naturally, as a response to what he represents, not as a result of his attempts to make someone feel something. The fundamental mistake most men make is trying too hard to elicit an immediate reaction from a woman. This approach is usually driven by anxiety, as men fear that without their efforts, they will lose the woman's attention or affection. However, this urgency only pushes the woman away because it communicates desperation, a lack of control, and a neediness that is, ironically, repellent. When a man pulls back, maintains his rhythm, and observes without rushing to fill every silence, he automatically positions himself as someone with greater value. This value isn't overtly advertised. It's shown through his consistent ability to remain composed and emotionally stable, no matter the situation. This calmness under pressure is one of the greatest signals of leadership and protection, qualities that are deeply ingrained in the biological wiring of women. Studies have shown that women are more likely to feel attracted to men who exhibit these traits because they signal that the man is capable of handling challenging situations and providing stability. This kind of emotional mastery doesn't just come from performing in the moment. It is a lifelong practice of self-awareness, control, and inner peace. In essence, what makes a man attractive is not his ability to act or perform, but his ability to embody a state of being that women subconsciously recognize as desirable. When a man has learned to sustain this state consistently, he no longer needs to pursue, chase, or impress. His mere presence becomes magnetic, as it represents something valuable, something that can't be bought or faked. This type of man is not someone who needs validation from others because he already knows his worth. It is this internal consistency that makes him irresistible, not because he tries, but because he effortlessly embodies the qualities that attract. The psychological positioning of the chooser, maintaining emotional control, and sustaining cognitive tension are not just abstract concepts. They are actionable steps that anyone can begin to cultivate. They don't require manipulation, deception, or disingenuous behavior. They require authenticity, self-discipline, and an understanding of the deeper dynamics of human attraction. This is why most men fail to master these techniques. They are focused on external methods or shortcuts rather than developing the internal strength and stability required to attract naturally. When a man focuses on mastering his emotions, maintaining control over his internal state, and consistently positioning himself as a person of value and choice, his interactions with women, and with people in general, will be transformed. He will stop chasing after external validation, and start to attract others based on the strength and clarity of his inner world. This transformation does not happen overnight, but it can be developed over time with patience, practice, and a deep commitment to self-mastery. The ability to cultivate and sustain this internal state, free of neediness and full of emotional stability, requires an understanding that true seduction is not about doing things right at specific moments, but about consistently being the right person in every moment. By doing this, you align with the true nature of desire, which emerges when the right signals are given, not when they are forced. Understanding this principle is the key to becoming a man who naturally attracts women, not through manipulation, but through the power of his authentic self. This understanding shifts the dynamic from one of pursuit to one of being chosen. When a man positions himself as someone whose presence commands attention without needing to solicit it, the environment begins to shift around him. Women are not drawn to his efforts to seduce, but to the value and emotional control that he consistently represents. This is the hidden trick of seduction. It is not about the moves you make, but the state you embody and the consistency with which you maintain it. When you understand and internalize this, you stop chasing after attraction, and instead, it begins to chase you. Ultimately, the difference between those who succeed in attraction and those who struggle is not about specific techniques or strategies. It's about the internal state of the individual. A man who understands this deeper truth doesn't need to try to seduce. His natural state of emotional mastery, psychological positioning, and consistent value becomes the foundation upon which desire builds. When you master this state, you no longer need to chase or manipulate. Attraction becomes a natural byproduct of the way you live and engage with the world around you. And that is the essence of true seduction, not in what you do, but in who you are. This natural, effortless attraction is the result of a man's internal harmony. When a man is able to align his body, mind, and attitude with his core values, desires, and emotional state, he becomes someone who represents strength, stability, and leadership. These qualities do not need to be shouted or overly emphasized because they are inherently visible in his presence, his actions, and his demeanor. This subtle yet powerful energy is what draws women, and people in general, toward him. It is not a matter of performance or manipulation, but of authenticity and emotional resilience. The key to seduction is not in the pursuit of someone else's attention or validation, but in the cultivation of one's own sense of self-worth and emotional control. When a man is emotionally centered, it allows him to navigate social situations with ease and confidence, without being swayed by external forces. His reactions are measured, not impulsive, and he remains grounded even in the face of emotional or social turbulence. This stability is the foundation upon which attraction grows, as it signals to others that this man is not only capable of handling challenges, but he also has the ability to protect and provide stability in his relationships. As a man learns to embody this state of emotional mastery, he will naturally begin to attract people who are drawn to his leadership and his ability to maintain composure. Women, in particular, are biologically wired to respond to these signals because they represent safety, security, and the ability to lead. This is why the most sexually attractive men are not those who are constantly chasing or seeking validation, but those who remain grounded in their own identity and are able to maintain emotional consistency regardless of the external circumstances. Furthermore, it is important to recognize that desire is not something that can be forced. It is not something that can be elicited by constantly trying to impress or by following a set of rules. Instead, desire arises when a woman, or anyone, feels a deep, unconscious recognition of value and strength. This value is not derived from superficial traits or external efforts. It comes from the inner qualities a man projects consistently. It is a quiet, powerful force that is felt, not spoken, and it invites curiosity and attraction without the need for explicit actions or statements. This leads us to the concept of cognitive tension and ambiguity in attraction. Desire does not grow when everything is made clear or when everything is laid out in front of someone. Desire thrives in the spaces of uncertainty, where the mind is engaged in interpreting and filling in the gaps. When a man gives answers that are too complete, or when he confirms interest too soon, he essentially closes the circuit before desire has had a chance to grow. The key here is to leave some things unresolved, some mysteries intact. This cognitive tension keeps the mind active and engaged, allowing the desire to deepen over time. Ambiguity, when managed correctly, stimulates dopamine production in the brain, creating a feeling of anticipation and curiosity. It is the anticipation of something that has not yet been fully resolved that creates the psychological tension that fuels desire. Therefore, a man should not rush to fill every silence or explain every detail. Instead, he should create an environment where curiosity is allowed to flourish, where the other person has to engage mentally to understand more. This is where true seduction lies, not in the explicit actions, but in the mental and emotional engagement that comes from leaving some things to the imagination. In practice, this means balancing moments of complete attention with moments of withdrawal. Not to punish, but to keep the interaction alive, to keep the curiosity burning. This subtle push and pull dynamic is what prevents the connection from becoming stale or predictable. The woman begins to think about the interaction after it ends, replaying moments, analyzing what was said, and wondering about the things that were left unsaid. As her mind continues to work, the attraction grows, and her body naturally follows this internal process. By not giving everything away at once, by not confirming everything too soon, a man creates an environment where desire can grow naturally and at its own pace. This is a more powerful form of attraction because it allows the other person to become invested emotionally and mentally in the process. Desire is not about immediate satisfaction. It is about building tension, anticipation, and curiosity that evolve into something deeper. When you master this technique of cognitive tension, you stop being seen as someone who is simply trying to attract or seduce. Instead, you become someone who draws people in with the strength of your presence, the depth of your emotions, and the consistency of your inner state. You become an attractive force not because of specific techniques, but because you have become someone who embodies the qualities that naturally elicit attraction and desire. Moreover, one of the key factors that many men overlook is the importance of timing. Knowing when to end an interaction is just as important as knowing how to begin it. Ending a conversation when you decide, not when the topic has run its course, disrupts the typical pattern of neediness. The female brain interprets this action as control over rhythm, which is seen as a form of leadership. Leadership, as we have discussed, is biologically attractive because it signals protection, direction, and stability. This quiet form of control over the interaction's pace communicates a level of self-assurance that cannot be faked. When a man maintains control over his own rhythm, he subconsciously signals to the other person that he is not desperate for their approval or attention. This leadership, therefore, does not stem from dominating the conversation or overwhelming the other person with attention. It comes from knowing when to step back and allow space for the relationship or interaction to evolve naturally. This subtle form of leadership is incredibly attractive because it signals that the man is capable of navigating both the social and emotional dimensions of life with ease and confidence. In conclusion, the key to becoming sexually attractive is not in any single move or technique, but in maintaining a consistent internal state that radiates confidence, control, and emotional stability. The man who understands this concept stops trying to seduce others. He begins to be seen as seductive, not because he is performing a set of actions, but because his presence alone communicates strength, value, and emotional mastery. It is this alignment of mind, body, and attitude that makes him naturally attractive. Through this deep internal work, he becomes someone who effortlessly draws people to him, not by forcing attraction, but by embodying the qualities that make desire inevitable.